Life isn't fair. Wouldn't you agree? You know that feeling when you think you're one good Google search away from finding the answers that you're looking for, only to be bombarded by a ton of guides and tutorials and walkthroughs that makes you even more confused than you first were? Now imagine the search engine being those people whose guidance you grew up trusting. And the search terms were about navigating through life's challenges. Some would say, hard work always pays off. You'll have an easy future if you outwork everyone today. This made me trade up nights of socializing for all-nighters on the computer, trying to get ahead of every school project. I even changed my phone's wallpaper to haters ask if you're hiring, just to show I was serious. I mean it. I even would wrap an elastic band like this around my wrist, just to snap it whenever I would lose focus. Now imagine my disappointment as I sat there with a report card full of C's in one hand and a massive credit card bill in the other. I mean, how would you feel if you gave up sleep to work every night and all you had to show for it was terrible grades and a lack of sleep? I knew at that very moment that the ones I trusted the most sold me a bunch of empty promises. If they said all the work would lead to terrible grades and massive debt, they'd be right. If they said that staying in would lead to becoming a shy introvert with very few friends, they would have definitely been correct. If they said that waiting it out would lead to heartbreak, they would have absolutely hit it on the nail. I wish they promised me I'd be disappointed, or I'd feel defeated, or that I'd be an utter failure. At least it would have helped me better manage my expectations. Sorry for all the venting, I just had to get it off my chest. Besides, if my debt collector James has to hear me complain about it every time he calls, I'm sure you can bear with me for a few minutes. I'd keep him on the phone for hours, complaining about the classmates I grew up with, going out there and living out the promises that were made for me. Why them and not me? I even had to witness my own closest friend grow up to live the life that I've always dreamt of. He didn't work harder than I did. We went to the same high school, same university. He even got the same type of embarrassing grades that I did. So what gives? Maybe it was because when I would say life isn't fair, he had this annoying hunch that maybe that was actually good news. Maybe his hunch was right, considering he traveled across the country, sharing his story on stage, and became a Guinness Book of World Records winner. He even started publishing books that would rank on the top sellers list alongside the greats like Gary Vaynerchuk. And if that wasn't enough, he even found himself an amazing life partner who was also living her best life. I would watch every podcast episode he was featured in, or read every article written about him, where they would often refer to him as being gifted with resilience. But growing up with him and watching him in action, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that resilience wasn't something he was born with. But watching his life unfold the way it did, it opened my eyes to something that I never truly understood. He made me realize that we've been doing resilience all wrong. I gotta be honest, I kind of got obsessed with this whole resilient muscle thing. I mean, could my friend's success just be pure luck? Or does lightning strike twice? And to my surprise, a much healthier approach to resilience has been brewing for a very long time, tucked away in the stories of successful leaders everywhere. While digging around, I came across incredible innovators like Nick Woodman, whose definition of happiness was riding the Aussie waves on his surfboard. Nick hated the idea of not being able to capture videos of his epic moves up close, so he decided to do something that makes me grateful for owning a waterproof cell phone today. He attached a 35mm camera to the palm of his hand with a rubber band, kind of like this. And let's just say it wasn't exactly the poster child for efficiency. But he wasn't all about the life isn't fair drama. Instead, Nick and his wife drove around in an old Volkswagen bus, selling beads and shell necklaces until they could build something better. I like to think they had the hustle until haters ask if you're hiring motto plastered all over their van for motivation, because let's be honest, they may not be the poster child for rubber band phones, but they were two of the biggest hustlers I've ever seen. In fact, they hustled so hard that they raised enough money to create a new waterproof camera that had its own custom wrist strap. And when brainstorming for a fun name, they decided to call it the GoPro. Surfers went nuts for it, and GoPro quickly became a household name in the surfer world. But Nick's hunger kept him building better models until it made it to the top of every single person's holiday wish list. Heck, even I lined up outside Best Buy at 4 a.m. on a chilly Boxing Day just to get myself one of these bad boys. Hey, this is before Prime same-day shipping was a thing, okay? And it wasn't just me. Every creative person in the world wanted their hands on this tiny device, which is why it was no surprise that by 2012, Nick joined the Billionaire Club and snagged the title for the highest paid CEO in the United States. Like my friend, Nick didn't have a unique gene for business success. They both simply shared a more optimistic view of resilience. You see, they didn't view resilience as an emergency measure. They saw it as a strategic advantage. While others were waiting to use their resilient muscle in times of adversity, they were stretching themselves in times of prosperity. And instead of grinding through every hurdle, instead they took breaks and made calculated moves. Harvard Business Review even vouched for this, saying that resilience isn't just about enduring, it's also about recharging. Imagine my surprise. As someone that was raised to believe that being an overachiever meant putting in long hours and working late nights on projects was the ultimate road to success, little did I know, I was headed down disaster lane. This wake-up call really got me rethinking everything. I mean, putting in those extra hours was one thing, but I was strutting into each day like I had a grudge against the world. I was mad at every unfair twist, and I was slamming the door on opportunities like I was in some type of action movie. I'd be lying if I said that this aggressive approach wasn't producing results, but there was this nagging feeling each day that just didn't sit right. It was like finishing the night with this metaphorical blood dripping down my mouth and a growing dislike for the world. I realize now I was just getting unhappier by the day. It turns out I was flexing my resilient muscle in a reactive state, where psychologists refer to this as your brain functioning in a red zone. This is where emotions like fear, frustration, and fight or flight take over your daily thoughts. And although this approach might produce some short-term wins, living in the red zone is a high-stakes game, where these short-term wins eventually lead to long-term burnout. It's like continuously overstretching this elastic band until it finally snaps. You might notice this when you see someone that is hustling harder than anyone else and then quietly disappears for a very long time. The real high achievers, they learn how to ride in what psychologists refer to as the green zone. Rather than being reactive, they position themselves to proactively activate the resilient muscles and stretch themselves just enough to remain unbreakable. Not only does it produce positive results, but what gets me really excited is that it produces results that is long-lasting and sustainable. Now you might be wondering, what does it mean to be proactively resilient? And don't worry if selling beads and shells isn't your vibe. you can fire up that elastic resilience in many other ways. My closest friend did this with much more basic things. See, while I was impatiently putting in those extra hours and overcommitting to every opportunity I could find, my closest friend was patiently practicing self-care. He was grateful for what he had, and he was continuously learning to become better at his craft. This comparison also made me realize that I was using comparison for all the wrong reasons, when it could actually be one of the best tools for operating in the green zone. Rather than beating myself up over other success, it could have been my ticket to inspiration and learning. You ever hear that phrase, comparison is the thief of joy? I now understand that it's envy that's the ultimate villain. Rather than wondering why him and not me with jealousy in my eyes, I was starting to learn comparison as a tool to see what's possible and to measure against my own progress. See, it's in those moments that you realize that although progress can sometimes feel like you're running in circles kind of like this, it's actually more like this. It's when you're allowing your experiences and learnings to stretch you to not only do more, but also become more. I saw this play out in my closest friend's journey. I mean, come on, we both got C's in our report card. But while I was too busy complaining to my debt collector, he was optimistically living every day in the green zone. And this optimism led to his greatest achievements. Achievements that I'm proud to compare myself to. So proud that I want to share a secret with all of you. That dear friend from the past, well, it's not just a memory. I couldn't be happier to say that he's right here with us today. In fact, he's standing on this very stage, no longer as a spectator from the past, but as a living, breathing example of this elastic resilience. This ongoing journey to be the best version of myself has hammered home the point that being resilient isn't like being in some exclusive club. It isn't just reserved for the special few. Whether you're a creative surfer or a ridiculously shy introvert like myself, a more elastic approach to resilience is something every single one of us can practice every day. It's something I wish I had known when I was this unhappy and frustrated young Mahfuz. If I could teleport back in time and cross paths with my younger self, I would simply gift him with an open letter. I would start the letter by first revealing the upcoming Lotto 649 winning numbers. I mean, come on. But eventually, I would tell him what I really meant by the whole life not being fair is actually good news spiel. I would tell him that it means that you don't have to accept your place in society. It means that not having a spot on a level playing field isn't a limitation. It's an opportunity to reach new heights. It means that if you're not happy with the hand that you've been dealt, there's room to grab new opportunities and find a better spot. I would encourage him to not let the elastic band on his wrist remind him of how many times he snapped, but rather remind him to proactively stretch his resilient muscle every day. And finally, I would thank my younger self for allowing me to grow through my opportunities. I would tell him, no matter how much you think you messed up, you aren't the past. You're the better version that learned from your experiences. And today, I want to teleport this open letter to you with the hopes that you see resilience not just as a trait that you carry just in case you need it, but as a proactive spring that propels your today's aspirations into tomorrow's accomplishments. I promise you, your future self will thank you.